Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Thank you guys for all the support on the episodes of the World Championships Cyclocross, and we are back now to take a look ahead at the last round of the Superprestige in Middelkerke. With me here today to do that is Issam. Hey Issam.
Hey everybody.
As we said, we'll be taking a look ahead at the cross in Middelkerke, the Noordzee cross. A couple of riders aren't there. Well, a couple is maybe a bit of understatement. A lot of riders have already ended their cyclocross season. The most noticeable names of that are Tim Merlier, who's already racing in the Prestige. Of course, world champion Mathieu van der Poel, his rival Wout van Aert. But also Gianni Vermeers isn't there. So it's a bit of an open race, more a situation like we had in the beginning of the season. And out of the form of the last couple of weeks, who do you expect to be in the front in absence of all these riders, Issam?
Well, that's always a tough question to ask because I think only looking to the World Championships, I think Aerts was very strong, and I think he seemed to be the best of the rest in a way. But of course, this is going to be a race for the win at this point because the main guys that were in front of them are gone. So it's really going to be a whole different story this race, and I think the pressure is going to be a little bit higher as well. And you might just see Iserbeet, Van Toerenhout and Zweek be up there, and then Toon Aerts needs to play that tactical game again. So it can be, it's going to be a whole different race in my opinion, and I think that is going to make it a little bit interesting as well.
Of course, the parkour will have a big influence on the race as well. Middelkerke, it's personally not one of my favorite races, but that's also always because after the World Championships, the hype is a bit down. As I said already, riders have ended their season, but the parkour, it's not that bad. It's a quite long parkour and quite a lot of steep banks, and at the moment they are forecasting rain, so I think that could become a really tough course because almost no moment for recovery on that parkour.
Yeah, the recovery is not really there. If it's really going to rain, it can mess up the parkour quite a bit, which is going to make a lot of places better to run than to go on the bike and stay on the bike, and it's definitely going to be difficult to stay on those sections where it's a little bit going down, where you have to probably run as well. I think that is definitely going to be a heavy race, a very tough race indeed, and in terms of recovery, the one with the best shape most likely wins this race. It's not gonna be. Tactics can be played in certain sections, but overall, the best comes up at the end of the race, I think.
You mentioned that you think the rider with the best form will win. Who do you think has the best form?
Yeah, I think Toon Aerts. I think Toon Aerts is coming back from a very hard period in a way. He was kind of out of shape after quite a good start, to be honest. But the mid season was pretty bad, and he came alive in the World Championships. And in my opinion, I think he might be the one to beat, to be honest.
I think so as well. Toon Aerts, his performance not only at the World Championships really impressed me. I didn't expect him to end third there, but before as well there were signs of improvement. Of course, that second place at the Belgian Championships, then 2 fifth places in the week leading up towards the World Championships in Ostend, where he ended third. Take a look at the riders in front of him. Van der Poel, Van Aert, not there. Rider directly behind him, Pidcock, not there either. Laurens Zweek in fifth. Let's say it's a muddy race. I don't expect Zweek to be in it then. Of course, you can never count out Zweek, but if he ends fifth on the parkour, perfect for him in Ostend. I don't expect him here in Middelkerke. So I think it will be basically at the beginning of the season we already saw Toon Aerts fighting against Van Toerenhout and Iserbeet.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the scenario, and Zweek was probably that result. What he managed to get was probably more due to his fact of his technical ability through descent than anything else. I think in terms of real condition, he is below all of those guys that you mentioned, which doesn't mean that he's bad, but it just, I think that for the win, Zweek doesn't really have the total package in terms of shape to achieve a victory or achieve a podium. But, we will see. I think we have to see if Toon Aerts is able to hold off the Pauwels-Sauzen squad. And don't forget, guys like Quinten Hermans, those guys are waiting for these moments to get that podium on a televised race. So the underdog can also come up.
Yeah, well, I think I agree there because Tormans, they haven't got a single podium in one of the classified crosses, something they, I assume, really want to have. But then on the other hand, Hermans, I don't know with him. I don't think this is his season. He still fell back at the World Championships to 8th place. But on the other hand, look at the riders who were around him. Nieuwenhuis not there either. Lars van der Haar, if it's running, van der Haar is out because his legs are simply too short. Then potentially Van Kessel. I think Van Kessel might be a good shout. He usually likes these type of parcourses, but then again, Van Kessel hasn't been great this season. He finished 11th at the World Championships. He has been consistent, but Van Kessel is not a winner either.
The Tormans guys are disappointing a little bit this season, especially Van Kessel and Hermans in a way. I was expecting them to be fighting a little bit more for podiums. So far, they have not achieved the podium at the classified races. So we're talking about the Superprestige World Cups and the XTO Badkamers Trofee. So I mean, to be honest, I think that is kind of disappointing for that team. I think they really expected a podium, especially from Quinten Hermans. But I guess Hermans was struggling a little bit to come back to his, his form, what we know from him. And I think that resulted in him not being able to achieve what he wanted to achieve. I think Van Kessel has been consistent in a way and probably maximizing his results. But also for him, I think his season is not the most exciting season so far. And these last races that we're going to have in this season are definitely you're going to see a lot of people that are not going to be that motivated for such a race. That's always the case, especially at the end of the season. And you're going to see just a few guys that are going to be very motivated to perform very well, and those guys will definitely rise in these last races of the season.
Of course, Tormans also has Kevin Kuhn, but then once again, Kuhn is a decent rider, but he doesn't have it, in my opinion, what it takes to end on the podium yet. Of course, it can come, he can surprise me, but I think it's a bit the story of the entire season for Tormans. They just are short of the places where they want to be on the podium. They're usually around places 4, 5, 6, and ultimately that's where I think the best rider of Tormans will end this weekend as well. Of course, if you look at the 4 best riders, easily beat Aerts, Van Toor and Zweek. Of course, it's possible they can beat one, but I don't see any of these riders making the step up to compete with my 3 top favorites here, easily beat Aerts and Van Toornout. So I think they will probably be in the group behind, riding for the 4th place, and if someone has bad luck, they can be lucky and get on the podium. But I ultimately think that they should also be looking backwards perhaps to some of the young riders here. I think Ryan Kamp and Pim Ronhaar will be very motivated here.
Yeah, I think indeed that those younger guys will definitely be motivated as well to have a good result at the elites. I think especially Kamp and 100% Ronhaar with his win on the World Championships, that those guys are going to be motivated to show themselves again. However, of course, this is always a thing that's not gonna help. Is that is the end of the season, and sometimes you can have the motivation, but the body is just not really reacting to that motivation. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be the one with the best legs in a way. And I think Middelkerke is going to show us what the last few races, what the tendency is going to be in the last few races.
Yeah, I think we'll know that this weekend. So let's make a prediction for the winner. Who do you think?
Yeah, I would go safe and go with Toon Aerts. I think that he is the one that that is the strongest at the moment and the man to beat, I think.
Then I will go with Michael van Toornout. Then we can go on to talk about the women's race. What do you expect for that race? Because it looks to be a pretty open race as usual. Do you think that world champion Lucinda Brandt will be immediately taking the victory? Or do you think that Alvarado can take revenge? Or potentially that Vorst can surprise again and continue the form of the world championships? And of course Betsema is there, and don't forget Honsinger if it's a tough parcours.
Yeah, the difference between the men's race where we miss a little bit those top guys and the women's race where almost everybody is going to attend to that race. I think that Brandt definitely wants to win that first race immediately in that jersey, of course, having the momentum and winning that race. But I think Alvarado wants to finish that season on a positive note than losing only that jersey on the World Championships. So it's gonna be interesting. I think personally that Brandt is not going to be able to, get rid of all that power that she has on this parcours in a way. I think there are too many corners, too many technical parts where having power is not really going to help you in a way. However, if the parcours is going to be tougher than it might be, then it's going to be a whole different ball game, and then Brandt might be able to use that power that she has.
I think Brandt is definitely coming here as the favorite. Of course, she is world champion, and I think the parcours does suit her in a way. It does have some big power sections, and the steep banks is more for Alvarado, in my opinion. I find it very hard to say what to expect here. I mean, if it's a real wet course with a lot of running, it probably won't be as extreme as in Dendermonde, but I mean, it is something for Honsinger. And two riders we haven't mentioned are Bakker and Kastelein. I don't want to fully count them out for a podium as well. Of course, Bakker had a shocker of a race at the World Championships, but she can bounce back. She showed her form the weekend before. It's not disappeared. She likes the tougher parcourses. If we find one here, I'm not counting Bakker out either for a podium. And with that said, I mean, Cant is there as well. She had hypothermia at the World Championships, just like Alvarado. I find it very hard to say, but I think once again we'll end up with the three names at the front who slightly have had the overhand the entire season: Brandt, Alvarado, Betsema, and about Vorst and Honsinger and Cant. I mean, I just don't know.
I have to agree on that one, and however, it will be interesting to see what Vorst is gonna do, because she surprised me quite a bit in that in that race on the World Championships. To be honest, I think she surprised herself also a little bit. I guess so. And it will be interesting to see if she can put herself in the mix once again in this race. Yeah, it's probably going to be the usual suspects again, and it's, if you can say one thing for sure, then it might be that the first three will be from the Netherlands.
It does look to be like that. I do think Honsinger has a shot of a podium, but it will depend a lot on what is the motivation that the riders are coming to here at the start with. How are they feeling? Did they make a big party after the World Championships, or did they properly train? It's hard to say, and it's usually a bit strange, the races after the World Championships, and you often see certain riders declining their form because they're either taking a rest or it's just tiredness that is setting in. But ultimately, I do think that Brandt will take home the win here.
Yeah, I agree on that one, especially on the partying bit. There are a lot of guys that already gave up on their season, that are already done with that season. So, I think that is definitely going to play a role if you're not as fit as you were before the World Championships. It's always going to be a little bit more difficult. And Brandt is probably the one to beat in this race. But I think that Alvarado might be very close on this one.
I think that could definitely be true. Alvarado was in good form the weekend before the Worlds as well. But I think, like I said, Brandt will slightly have the upper hand because I expect it to be muddy, and then I expect Brandt, her raw horsepower, to set in. But I agree, Alvarado is definitely a shout as well. But if you would have said Betsema or Vorst or Honsinger, I would have believed you as well. This race is just simply too open. We haven't even spoken about the under 23 world champion Fem van Empel, who is on the start list here as well. What do you think she can do?
Well, I think she might be very motivated for this race, and I honestly don't know about Van Empel, what she will do on this parcours. It's a bit hard for me to place her somewhere amongst the elite riders. I think it's really hard to say what she's going to do. But if I would think about it a little bit more, I would say that maybe she would be able to sneak in the top 5. I don't think she would be able to get a podium or win. I think that is way too high for her at this moment. But I definitely think that if she had no problems in the race, that she might be able to sneak in that top 5.
I think we will see this weekend, and it's kind of strange that after the World Championships we've seen a lot of racing that were less confident to make predictions in both the men's race and the women's race than we were before the World Championships. But I think that has to do exactly with those World Championships that provided us with plenty of surprises.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't want to we don't want to say something and ending up with completely different things. And I guess the World Championships really, showed us that it might be a whole different field that we're looking at that are going to be the best or not. So it's very difficult to predict those things, but we can have an indication of what's going to happen, and we'll see how close we were after this weekend, for sure.
Well, then the last thing, we almost forgot it. The classifications here in the Superprestige, they already look to be set in stone, at least in my opinion. Brandt leads Alvarado by 3 points, and Aerts leads Issam by 5 points. Especially for Aerts, I don't expect him to lose that anymore. For Brandt, something strange would need to happen as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if one of those will lose their classification, well, then I can bet you already that race is going to be an interesting one and something crazy happen. But if it's going to be a normal race, then I don't think that those first positions are going to be in danger. But I bet that the positions below them are definitely in danger for some. And of course, not everybody is at the race attending, so I guess some will be also motivated to get a little bit more points to climb up the classification.
And then here as well, we basically already said it, but one name, I expect Alvarado from you.
Yeah, I will say Alvarado, but I think that Brandt might win it. But I say Alvarado.
Yeah, then I go with Brandt, the world champion, to immediately claim the win. Well, then I think we had it for this episode of the Cyclocross Social podcast. We will be back on Saturday when we make a podcast about the last round of the Superprestige in Middelkerke, and on Sunday when we make a podcast about the penultimate round, I must say, of the DVV Trophy in Lille. Issam, thank you for being here.
Thanks for hosting.
And as I said, plenty of podcasts coming up this weekend. And if you're wondering where to watch this race, make sure to check cyclocross.social.com/live and you can find it over there. Thank you guys for listening and once again for the support on our previous podcast, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.